Hello, fellow automation enthusiasts, and welcome back to the PowerShell Collaboration Unleashed series, where we're looking at different ways that you can share and collaborate on your PowerShell scripts with your team or really anyone you choose. In this part of the series, we're focusing on the Littlest JupyterHub, a lightweight version of JupyterHub, which is a web-based tool for creating and sharing scripts through notebooks. If you're unfamiliar with notebooks or JupyterHub, be sure to check out the JupyterHub series overview video where I explain these concepts in details. A link to that is in the description. But in short, it is a way for you to create, shared, and standardized environments where you don't have to worry about the, well, it works on my machine issues. And you can connect to it from any browser on any machine, and everything will be ready for you to start working. In this video, we'll be walking through the installation of the Littlest JupyterHub, adding support for .NET and PowerShell, and setting up some folders to allow you to start sharing and collaborating right away. To follow along, all you need is a server running Ubuntu 20 or later with OpenSSH installed. For this video, I'll be using Ubuntu 24.04. If you need help getting your server set up, check out the previous video where I cover the installation process step by step. Also, all the commands used in this video are available for you to copy via a link in the description below, so you don't have to type it all out and you can easily follow along. Now, without any further ado, let's get automated. So the first thing that you need to do is connect to your Ubuntu server. Then we can start the Littlest JupyterHub installation. Fortunately, the creators of this project have created a bootstrap script that will take care of most of the installation for you. All you need to do is use curl to download the script and then pipe it to Python to install. As always, I recommend reviewing things before you run them. If you type this URL into your browser, you'll be redirected to GitHub where you can view this installation script. But to get installed, all you need to do is supply the name of an admin account that you want to create. In this case, I'm choosing the name Hub Admin. Just let this run and it'll install all the components for you. Like in previous videos, some parts of this video may be sped up or edited for dramatic purposes, or to keep you from having to sit here and watch my machine think. In other words, if my install moves faster than yours, that may be why. And that is it for the Littlest JupyterHub installation. But now we need to install .NET and the notebook integrations for .NET. The first thing you need to do is find out which version of Ubuntu you are running. You can do that by looking at the file OS release in the etc or etc folder. Now, if we want to get really fancy, we can extract the version from the file using grep, cut, and export command. This will save it to an environmental variable that we can then pass into the URL. This can be helpful later on if you want to automate this entire installation process. Once you have your OS version, you can use it to download the correct .NET installation package from Microsoft. Download the deb file with the URL packages.microsoft.com/config/ubuntu, your OS version, packages-microsoft-prod.deb. Again, all of these commands are available via a link in the description. Next, install the package using dpkg-i. And then you can delete the package file. Next, run apt update to refresh your local package index. And finally, we'll do an apt install .NET-SDK- the .NET version, which in this case is going to be 8.0. Once .NET is installed, you need to install the .NET notebooks into the Littlest JupyterHub directory. Do this using the .NET tool command with .NET tool install Microsoft.NET-interactive-toolpath and the path to the Littlest JupyterHub installation, which if you use the bootstrap installation will be opt-TLJH-user/bin. So now we've installed the Littlest JupyterHub server, .NET 8, and installed the .NET interactive tools into the Littlest JupyterHub. So now we're ready to start using it. So go ahead and open your browser and navigate to http:// the name or IP of your server. You'll log in with the username you specified during the installation of the Littlest JupyterHub server, not the user you used for connecting via SSH, unless you happen to use the same name for both. Since this is your first time connecting, there is no password. So whatever you type in the password field will become your password. When you connect, a new environment will be spun up for you. And that's one of the great benefits of JupyterHub, is that each person runs in their own isolated environment. Now you may notice we only have Python notebooks and not .NET or PowerShell. That is because you need to install the .NET Interactive in your local environment. Do this by opening a terminal window and entering the command .NET Interactive Jupyter install. Now, when you go back to the launcher, you'll see the .NET and PowerShell notebooks appear. This can take a minute or two, so be patient with it. Once they do load, go ahead and click on the PowerShell notebook and we can test it out. Start with the simple get module command. Click run, and if everything is working, it will output all the modules installed. I'm just going to go ahead and clear, save, and close this notebook. Now, one item we'll want to solve for is the loading of the .NET Interactive for other users. You saw a moment ago where I had to open a terminal and run the command to get the PowerShell notebook to load in my session. This is a one-time thing that you need to do the first time you log in. After that, they will load every time you log in. However, every user will need to run this same command the first time they log in. But instead of having to direct each and every person on how to open the terminal and enter the command, we can create our first shared notebook that they can run to do it for themselves. Since Python is there by default, we'll go ahead and we'll create a new Python notebook and enter the command import subprocess to import the subprocess module, a module that lets you run shell commands. Then use the subprocess popen to run the .NET Interactive Jupyter install. Then go ahead and save it. Next, we're going to go ahead and create some shared directories. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create 3 of them. I'm going to be creating one that will be locked down so users can only run the notebooks, but not save anything into that folder. Another one where the users will be able to save notebooks and share it with others, but only the creator can edit it. Others would be able to run it and execute it. And a third one that will be the Wild West that anybody could upload or edit notebooks to. In later videos, we'll go into setting up integrations with source control and everything like that, but these folders are a good starting point. First, I'm going to go ahead and open a new terminal window, and then all these folders, I'm going to create them in the srv-data folder. First, I'm going to create the setup folder, where users will only be able to read and execute notebooks. Then, I'm going to create a symbolic link to this folder to the etc/skel or skeleton folder. This will link the folder to each user's home directory, so it will show up the first time that they log in. And then I'll copy the install PowerShell kernel's notebook into that setup folder I just created. By default, users will only have read access, so you don't need to change any permissions. Now, I'll do nearly the same thing to create a folder where users can share notebooks, but others cannot edit them. I'll make the folder shared that will have read and write permissions for all users. Again, create the symbolic link. Now this time I'm going to update the permissions so that users can save files into this folder. We'll start by using the change owner and set that to root JupyterHub-users. This group is automatically created when the first person logs into JupyterHub. Next, we'll use the change mode 777 to set read, write, and execute permissions for the folder. Then use change mode G+S to ensure that any new file or directories created within this folder will inherit the directory's permissions. And finally, I'm going to copy in the get module notebook. Now, for the last folder, that will be the collaboration folder where anybody can create or edit any of the files. In order to do this, we'll need to install the access control list or ACL libraries. So we'll hop back into our SSH terminal and run the command apt install ACL. Then, back in the browser, we can create a folder just like the last one. We'll create the folder, set the symbolic link, and then set the permissions. So for this time, I'm going to use the set facl command to ensure that all files created in this directory will be given edit permissions for all users in the JupyterHub-users group. To show you how all of this works, I'm going to create a couple of test users. You don't need to follow along for this part, it's just a demonstration. I'll go ahead and go to File, Hub Control Panel, and then click Admin. Click Add Users, and I'm going to create 2 new users, both without admin permissions. Next, I'm going to open a new browser session so I can log in as one of these new user accounts. Just like before, the password is set based on what you entered during the first login. So I can see that the collab setup and shared directories were automatically added for me, and that I only have Python notebooks available. So I'll go into the setup and run the install PowerShell kernels notebook. As you can see at the top, this is read only. If I tried to save it, it would give me an error saying I don't have permissions. So I'll hit discard and go back to the main launcher. Wait just a few moments and the PowerShell and NET notebook should appear just like they did last time. Now I can go into the shared folder and run the get module notebook and see that it is read-only as well. This is because this user did not create it. However, I do have permissions to create new ones in this directory. So I'm just going to create one here as this user to be able to demonstrate it when the second user logs in. Now I'll go into the collab directory and just create another notebook to demonstrate the permissions for you. Next, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to kill this session, and I'm going to log back in as that second user. Go ahead and install the PowerShell kernels again. Then take a look at the directories. In the shared, I can see the file user01 made, that it is read only to me. Now if I go into the collab directory, I can confirm that I actually can make changes to the file that they created. So this demonstrates the different ways that you can potentially set up your permissions and how that could look on your server. So now that we have our shared directories, there's one last topic I would like to cover in this video, and that's the installation of PowerShell modules. If we run the get module notebook from earlier, you can see that only the base modules are installed. While you can actually run install-module command from within a notebook, that only installs the modules to the user environment. Since one of the points of using JupyterHub is to eliminate things like dependency issues or people having wrong versions, we're going to install the modules at a global level. However, in order to do that, we need to install PowerShell on the host machine. So once again, we're going to go back into our SSH session from earlier. You can install PowerShell using the command snap install PowerShell -- classic. The classic is not referring to PowerShell, so don't worry, you're not installing an older version of PowerShell. The classic flag, in this context, refers to the specific confinement model used by Snap. Snap packages run in isolation from the rest of the system to improve security. However, we need to install PowerShell at the global level, so it uses the classic flag to be given broader access to the system. Once the installation completes, we can go back into JupyterHub. Ensure that you're going back in as the admin account, and we're going to open a new terminal window. Enter the command sudo -E pwsh. The -E ensures that your environmental variables are preserved, so that the ones unique to running in JupyterHub will still be there. Now you can install all the modules you want, but be sure to include the -scope and set it to all users. I also added a -force to keep from being prompted to confirm the installation. Once the install completes, I can run the get module -list available and see the new modules I just installed. Now, if I go back to my standard user and run the get module notebook again, I should see the new modules appear here as well. And now you're all set to start creating and sharing PowerShell notebooks. We've successfully installed the Littlest JupyterHub, added support for PowerShell and .NET, configured shared directories to collaborate with your team, and installed a couple modules. You have everything in place to start creating and sharing PowerShell notebooks effortlessly. But don't forget to install those modules globally for consistent environments across all of your users. In the next videos in this series, you'll see how to authenticate with external resources like Azure and Microsoft Graph. You'll also learn how to keep everything secure by using certificates in HTTPS. And we'll even configure JupyterHub to use Azure AD or Entra ID authentication, plus a whole lot more. If this video helped you out, please give it a like and subscribe for more content like this. If you have any questions on this video or suggestions for future topics, please drop them in the comments below. And make sure to check the description for a link to all the commands used in this tutorial, as well as other helpful resources. Thank you for watching and happy automating.